Welcome to Native Bidaské, Native News Online's weekly spotlight on the people making news and leading change in Indian country.
Welcome to another episode of Native Bidaské. I'm Levi Rickert, your host and founder, editor of Native News Online. We have a special guest today, and it's Ben Jacobs, who's he's a tribal citizen of the Osage Nation. However, he lives in Denver. And Ben, welcome to Native Bidaské. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
And you started Tocabe restaurant. We're going to talk about your new one at the Denver International Airport. But when did you start your original one?
We opened December of 2008. So we are in our 17th year now.
That's congratulations. I actually had the privilege of eating there when the National Congress of American Indians were in town. I want to say that was 2017, something like that. I kind of lose track, but I remember having some bison, and that was absolutely delicious. And then 2 days later, you were out on the street with your food truck in front of the convention center, and people from National Congress of American Indians went down, and I got some green chili stew, as I recall, and it was absolutely delicious. So tell us this. Tell us, how's that new restaurant going at the Denver airport?
It's good. It's going well so far. Let's see. We opened April 7th, so we're about a month in. It's going well right now. You know, it's opening a restaurant to begin with is a really difficult task. Opening in one of the nation's and world's busiest airports is a whole nother beast. So it took us a little over 6 years to get open. So, you know, obviously lots of hurdles that we had to go through with that, but also just how we approach our food and our sourcing methods and things like that. That added a whole nother layer of making sure that we get the ingredients that we want directly into the airport, because also this is in order to get into Denver International Airport, you basically have to have a collaborative relationship and a partnership. So this is a license deal. So we have full oversight of the restaurant, food quality, consistency, at least food control, sourcing methods, things like that. But it is operated by a partner that we have in the airport. So again, that is a whole nother line of complexity to work through, where we're really training staff, training management, not only our food preparation and our quality and controls, but also the culture of our company. You know, making sure that they are supporting and representing, you know, our philosophy and our vision as a company at the same time. So it's been an exciting process, and it has been a long time coming. But as of right now, it's going well. You know, opening the door to a whole new audience for us, which is great. You know, not only are we getting local traffic, but also it opens up to a global audience, which is a really exciting effort for us.
Yeah, and I'm in and out of the Denver airport often. What concourse are you in?
We're in Concourse A, which is it's cool because Concourse A is starting to turn over and convert into United's taking over half, but also it is the international terminal. So that's really cool because of the global audience, obviously airport global to begin with, but the fact that like right across from us, the gates the last week were to Frankfurt and Heathrow and things like that. Like that's an incredible opportunity for people to experience our brand, but also for people to have you know, native produced foods that are not just from, you know, the States, but are from, you know, audiences around the world.
And how are the sales like in comparison to projections? Have you met your projections? Are they?
Not as of yet. As most restaurants, you know, we're growing in what our projections are. Also, you know, we're learning as you do in a restaurant street side, but you know, we're learning, and what I've really found being at the airport so often the last couple months is, as I keep saying, there's 1,000 people all doing 1,000 different things. So when someone comes in the restaurant street side, you know they're there to eat. But at the airport, someone's going to their next flight. They're trying to go to the bathroom. They're trying to fill their water. They're getting a cup of coffee. They're doing all these different things. So drawing people in and getting them to actually, you know, engage and have a meal is a different approach. You know, also right now with Denver International Airport, as I'm sure you are well aware, and those that travel through, it's a constant building process. So of course, we decided to fix the moving walkway right in front of our restaurant. So we have a giant wall blocking most of our view right now. But I will say those are hurdles that you have to come over anyways in a restaurant. Maybe not a giant wall blocking your view, but we are ramping up. Sales have been steadily climbing each week, which is really exciting. We launch our breakfast starting next week, so we'll be open 16 hours a day, so 3 full day parts, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. So yeah, we're excited, and we also opened in April. April is one of the quieter months of the year, so it's actually looking at it a positive way. It's beneficial to get the crew trained up and in the methods and in the flow. And then as we start to hit these summer months and DIA start to really ramp up their business and passenger travel, we're excited that projections are going to start to meet their expectations in the coming months.
And what are your menu items? Is it the same as you have the full menu like you do with your original restaurant, or is it more limited?
Yep. Yeah, no, full menu that we have at the original restaurant, minus the bison ribs, just because, based on the volume.
You're making me hungry, man.
I know, I'm sorry. We're not doing bison ribs just because, the bison is a limited, quantity that we can get kind of anyways. It's even that at our street side restaurant. So we don't have that. And then we launched breakfast. So breakfast is something that we don't have at our street side location, just because we're open 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. So that's exciting. So we've expanded the menu there, which is a menu we used to do on the food truck and different special events. So that'll be really cool. But yes, it is the same as our daily restaurant as of right now.
Well, tell me this: how do you indigenize breakfast food?
Yeah. So we do have eggs, as a part of breakfast. But,
sure.
We have what we call green chili hominy scramble bowls. So everything is hominy corn, roasted green chilies if you like. And then your protein options are elk, bison, or boar sausage. And then we do New Mexican red chilies, base of beans of your choice. And then we are also doing chilaquiles, which are green chili corn chips that are tossed in a red chili that we make. And then again, you have your green chili, your hominy, and then your choice of protein on top. Again, bison, elk, or boar sausage, and then pickled onions, things like that. We have our creativity. It's just like Tocabe is. We're very ingredient driven, so it's about making sure that we're having our native produced ingredients on top of that, and then making something that speaks to the day part, which is the breakfast.
Sure. Now, tell me, has any good responses from some of those international travelers as far as indigenous food goes? Have you had any good comments?
Yeah, we've had really positive feedback so far. We've had people. There was a family that was headed to Switzerland or Sweden, I believe, and we're really excited about having our food before they went. We had some people in line, because obviously we've been engaging with people in line, and people saying, they've never had it, they've never seen it, they've never heard of Tocabe, but they were so interested and excited to try the food. Again, very positive feedback that we've heard so far. So that's exciting. I mean, I think first and foremost for us is we've always been this way since we started, is we want to make sure that we provide a good culinary experience, a good food experience first. And then people be excited and to provide people a good quality food experience and not just say, hey, we're native, you should support us through that. We want to say, hey, you have an amazing food experience. This food is fantastic. Oh, and by the way, love your sourcing methods, love your story, love your, where you come from, your cultural connection, your development, your story. That's all very important. But again, first and foremost, it's a restaurant. You got to make sure you provide good quality food.
Most definitely. Well, hot when it's supposed to be hot and cold when it's supposed to be cold and fresh.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Now the American Indian Alaska Native Tourism Association, they've done a lot of work in recent years trying to attract the international travelers, and they actually have charts if they can keep international travelers in the United States going on to tribal lands. They have some pretty good numbers in terms of that. So I just seem to think as you're talking, Ben, what you're doing there at Denver International Airport is going to help them. Maybe let's say next time we come back to America, we're going to go on to tribal land. And how did you become a chef, and what inspired you? How long have you been a chef?
So I have been in the restaurant industry myself personally, 25 years. now. We've had Tocabe.
What, you started when you were 6 or what?
I know. I appreciate that. Thank you. But really going back, my parents opened a restaurant in 1989 when I was 6 years old. I'm the youngest of 4 kids.
Okay.
We ended up in Denver when my mother got a job at the Denver Indian Center. That's what brought us to town. And
wow,
they opened a restaurant in 89 called Gray Horse American Indian Eatery. So they were pushing for the progression of native foods in a professional manner back then. And so we really just took that on, and that's how we developed Tocabe. I was never trained professionally as a culinarian. I just worked in the industry, and then obviously being connected to our foods anyways, you have the skill set from that. And so opened Tocabe, became a chef, as I say, kind of unintentionally became that way. So I've been cooking now professionally, I suppose you could say, for over 20 years, and then with Tocabe specifically for the last 17. But this is just kind of everything that I've always done, everything that my family has kind of been a part of, not only from a native food experience, but from a professional setting. It's something that my parents had with us when we were little. That operated for 2 years. So it was only there for 2 years, and then it went away. But, it was really impactful on my life and obviously my career trajectory.
Yeah, that's really nice. Now, I remember when I was in your Denver location, the original location, I sat there and was totally amazed because we were there, as I recall, at lunch. We were there at lunchtime on a Monday, as I recall, and that place was packed. And I was thinking, and it was not all Native Americans. I mean, It was very few. There's a few of us scattered, came in from the took a Uber, I think, out to your restaurant from the Denver Convention Center, but it was non-natives. How did you attract the non-natives? It was just
I think that's a good question. I mean, I think initially there was the draw, right? There's there's a native spot in town, I'm gonna go check it out. But I think why we still get that and why we've sustained that for now, 17 years is kind of what I was saying is people, when they go and they spend their hard-earned money to go out and have food, they have to have a good experience. You can have the best story in the world, but if the food's not great, you're not going to come back. So I think that, we obviously, we not intentionally, but we drew people in on the interest of what we were doing. And then we kept people by the quality and the consistency that we provide. And one thing that I'm very proud of is that, our restaurant now is basically 17 to 28-year-olds. Our general manager, her name's Pearl Blueback. She has been coming to the restaurant since she was 11 years old.
Oh, wow.
And so she's 28 now, and we have a young crew, and they have taken on the torch and not only provide good quality food every day, but they provide that welcoming atmosphere. And that's always been really important to me from day one. And they maintain that as like, I had this perception, right? Whether it's right or wrong, when we opened, that people were going to come in with a certain perception of Native peoples and culture and community. And I wanted to make sure that we as a company make sure that if we were going to be their one interaction with Native people when they leave, they walk with understanding who we are as a people. And that is kind, pleasant, respectful, approachable, engaging, funny, everything. Like I wanted people to walk out with like, oh, wow, let's change their perception of Native peoples. Our crew now maintains that. And I think that that's what's led to our success is it's a restaurant that's built on accessibility. It's a restaurant that's built for Native people, but it's open to everyone to walk into. Like I want all Native people to come in and say, hey, this is my place and my space. But at the same time, like anyone of any background, any culture, any community, any nationality can come in and feel welcome as a part of our community and then walk out with a really positive impact, like positive feeling about what they had. And so I think that that's how we kind of drew people in is we're this balance of, we're a community driven restaurant, but we're a business at the same time. And so we want to be successful from the business, but we want people to walk out feeling like, man, like that was for me too. And I had a wonderful experience. We're grateful. It's a very positive thing that people choose to come eat your food every day. Like that's at the end of the day, a restaurant is a place that people choose to come eat your food every day. And in my opinion, you must treat them in that way that you be grateful for that and be very receptive and respectful of the fact that they choose to come share your food. And again, I think that that's what's led to our success over the years, is we genuinely care about the people that come in and share a food experience with us on a daily basis.
And that to me is, I actually came out of the restaurant industry, and we always talked about quality, service, and cleanliness, but you cannot de-emphasize that service. People want good service, and especially these days, inflationary times, when people are going to spend their hard-earned money, they want to be treated with that due respect. So it sounds like you guys have that down. That's wonderful.
Yeah, for sure. And so I just say quickly, and I think that that's one thing that's really important too, and that our team has taken on, is they're excited to be able to share themselves with the guests that come in, and they provide each guest with, especially with us being an assembly line where we don't have servers, they give each guest their time. And so I think even if someone waits in line a little bit longer, by the time they get to the front, they realize, oh, it's because the crew is giving each person their time and their moment and answering their questions and being patient.
Mm-hmm.
They want to provide them with a positive experience, And so we teach that all the time, is when you go to another restaurant, you want them to be respectful and polite and kind to you, right? So like we should provide that to people when they come into our establishment.
Well, that's the key to success in restaurants. And I don't think the average person really realizes how hard restaurant work is. I guess the teenagers who work there are coming up, but I have to tell you, it's hard work. So.
Yeah. I say that all the time. It is blue collar work. You're on your feet. It's fast. It's stressful. You get that heightened sense of anxiety when something happens, when there's a lot of people, but then it's hot. You're doing dishes, you can get messy, it's all those things. Like it is hard work, and, but it's also, people can learn an amazing amount of lessons, because while you're doing all that hard work, you still get to engage on a personal level with someone else. And not everyone gets to do that every day. So, I mean, it's nothing else that there's nothing else I would rather do, but you got to be kind of built for it.
Yeah, it's long hours and a lot of good work. Hey, I was really interested. You were saying about the food suppliers. You have to comply and get it. Maybe the system that the Denver airport. Are there any indigenous products that you're having a hard time getting into that system, like chilies, for instance, or how's that work?
No, so since we have a partnership out there, it's kind of a license deal. Think about it as like a franchise.
Sure.
What we built into our agreement is that they have to source ingredients from us, and so it's all built into our agreement. And so we supply them with varieties of beans, with all of our buffalo, with wild rice, with all of our seasoning blends, our bread mix. Like we supply all that to them directly, and then how it works for us is we have relationships directly with native food producers all over the states. And so we bring the products into Denver. We withhold it in a warehouse that we have. And then just like any other food purveyor, our partner at DIA calls us, the sous chef out there, he calls us, a kitchen manager calls and says, I need to place an order. They place an order. And then we have a distribution partner that drives it to the airport. So we don't do it personally, because obviously with it being the airport, with the amount of security measures, and the insurance that needs to be had, we actually partner with a local grocery store that's here in town called Marzix. They actually do our distribution for us. I'm good friends with the owner there. And so he takes out and he delivers all of our food. And so we've built in our own little supply chain distribution channel. But think about it just like any other food purveyor. As a restaurant, you would place your order. They place an order with us, and then we deliver once a week out there to our concept.
Yeah. Now, indigenous food sovereignty is just kind of it's real trendy, right? People really get into it. How have you contributed to that throughout the years? It's just basically virtue of the fact you're in business on indigenous foods, or do you work with other indigenous chefs like Sean Sherman or others, or Crystal Watt?
Yeah. I mean, now being in this professionally for 17 years, outside of just being in the community, is we're seeing a rapid rise in the native culinary world, native chefs and caterers and restaurants, which is unbelievable and amazing because it's what we've all needed. I work with native chefs. I've gone, to countless food sovereignty summits and conferences and things like that, really talking about the expression of our food and growing, what our cuisine is. I say all the time that I believe we're in a beautiful space within the native professional native culinary world, because in many cases, our joint communal cuisine is not clearly defined. Like, what is native foods? Or what is native cuisine? People ask me that all the time. What is native cuisine? And I always ask back, I don't know. You tell me. And I think it's because we can talk about ingredients and things like that. That's really important. But like, what is our cuisine? It takes the point we're in right now of having native culinarians. We're working together to develop our cuisine. But then at the same time, you need the farmers, the ranchers, the caretakers of the land, the people of the water, the seed savers. You need all of that. A food system is more than just the chef. You know, we are the end point.
Yes.
We get to cook something and put it on a plate, but we have nothing without all the other elements of growing, raising, and producing food. And so I think from a from a food sovereignty standpoint, from, you know, at least my work is, I've traveled to communities for now almost 2 decades and working directly with community members, not only just on ingredients or products that they develop, but also just what are techniques? What are the stories that they tell through their food? What is the culture and the image and identity that we're sharing through our cuisine? Because food is about people first. Like for me, food is more than the ingredient. It's about the people that it comes from. And that's something that is a main component of food sovereignty. It's not just the food, it's about the people and the community at the same time. And then I think, you know, as a professional, being able to share the food, that's a hugely important aspect, because we get to claim and share the stories of the ingredients from our own voices. And I do not take it lightly or for granted the fact that I get to go to communities and then I get to be a voice for the people in those communities and talk about, you know, their expression of cuisine or their ingredients. It's really important. So I think that, you know, we try to do everything we possibly can. I mean, we're community first in what we do. That's what Tocabe has always been. Like, I believe I said it before, but, you know, a friend coined that for us as a community-driven experience. It's not Ben Jacobs. It's Tocabe. We always wanted to be its own thing. And what that is, it's a living, breathing entity that has all these voices that get to share. And I think food sovereignty is an amazing part of that, because food sovereignty is story and story is people.
Yeah, that is, we Native people are such tied to our communities, and it's just so important. So it's fair to say that Indigenous food is way beyond the Indian taco that people know about from powwows, right?
Yeah. You know, and, you know, obviously we do that. We started with that, you know, when we were starting those years ago, was what's the foot in the door? You know, what is the thing that the average person is familiar with? What's something that we can start there? And then, you know, I say now that we're ingredient driven, it goes to our sourcing methods. Like what can we do to support the native food system? Because as you know, restaurants and caterers and things like that, we need to make sure that we're supporting our own food system. So we have a mantra that we say native first, local second, everything beyond. So if we can buy from native food producers first, we always do that. And then we get things locally. So it's a little bit different than a lot of everyday restaurants where they buy local. Well, we'll buy blueberries from Passamaquoddy in Maine and bring them thousands of miles, because that means we're impacting the native food system, you know? So like, that's really important to us and what we do. And so I say now, you know, we're ingredient driven, but it goes to kind of my point with native culinarians is we can create what our cuisine is now, because coming from the essence and the heart of our ideas and our communities and from our foods. So why can't we be just as innovative and creative with our foods the way that any other chef is from any other community or nationality? We should be able to develop, and I'll just say this, I know I'm rambling on a little bit, but like, we would have people that would come in and say, I want to eat what they ate 200 years ago. Well, that's cool, right? We can talk about ingredients, but what you're also doing is you're pigeonholing us into an era. And I don't think that's right. Like, we are very much here and current and modern and progressive as anyone else. Like, why can't our foods be as innovative as we are? And so, again, native culinarians are taking the reins of that and being like, this is my plate. This was I've developed. This is who I am, where I come from. This is native food. And no one can tell you you're wrong, because you've created it from the essence of who you are. And you've done it in the way that is meaningful and purposeful to put a plate on. So again, that's why I say, I believe as a community of professional cooks, we're creating our cuisine together. I've worked in many kitchens, and no kitchen that I've ever really been in is more collaborative than a kitchen of like 8, 9, 10 native chefs being like, hey, what are you doing with that ingredient? How are you doing? Oh, whoa, that's cool. I really like that. It's like chefs can be very competitive. But for some reason, I think it goes to what I'm saying is native cooks and chefs are really excited to work together because we're on the precipice of creation and innovation. I think that's a really cool thing to be a part of.
I found that conversation very amazing. I think we need to talk about that again. We at Native News Online, we've got some funding to do reporting on Indigenous food sovereignty. So Ben, you just intrigued me. So you'll be hearing from me because I want to. Very similar to what Native artists are. If you're Native American, it's Indian art. You don't necessarily have to paint the bows and arrows, right? So it's like, yeah, I really like that concept. Hey, we got to go, but hey, one last question. When Ben's out there and you really want, where do you get your best fry bread?
Tocabe. Tocabe is where it's at.
Okay.
I always say to people when it comes to fry bread, if we're second in your book, that means we're first place because we're never going to outdo someone's mom or auntie or grandma or whatever.
That's right.
But I always say we're first because that was from my family, from my grandma.
So I learned something today. And in the beginning of this episode, I said it wrong. I say Tocabe, but how do you say it?
We say Tocabe. Yeah, we say Tocabe. It's said in all different ways. We get a lot of Tocabes, get a little pluralize it, but it's Tocabe. I always say your friendly neighborhood Tocabe.
Super. All right. Thanks, Ben, and Chimigush to you and to our viewers. We'll be back next week with another episode of Native Bidaské. In the meantime, the elders take care of those young ones and give them hugs, and young people take care of your elders. We're our community here at Native News Online and throughout Indian countries. So Chimigush, tune in again next week. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. If you value our warrior journalism for Indian country, please consider supporting our work by scanning the QR code or visiting the link below. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media,